Hi everyone, Laura here, exploring death and celebrating life. I want to talk about starting up end-of-life conversations with people you love who may be sick or may be aging, and it's one of those awkward situations that is difficult to do, but so worth it if we can plant the seed now. Sometimes when we bring these conversations up with people, no one wants to talk about death. We bring them up, they can be met with a no, don't go there. And we can feel that in ourselves too. I don't want to do this, but you can, and I'm here to motivate you on ways to do it, because it's so worth it. Planting those seeds, even if it is met with resistance when you first bring it up, you set the tone. You set the stage for further conversations, and you can't go wrong. Any little bit of work you do on this will save you so much more heartache later. And in a death denial culture that we live in, we're just not taught how to talk about this. And so I just want to kind of do a broad overview of ways to bring it up and the importance and what to bring up, questions to ask. And I'll also give you resources and other sources that you can go to learn about this. I've got the window open, so some wind's going to be blowing every so often. Let's see here, and it also helps me to look outside to think. I think the main thing I want to start with is there is never a natural moment to bring up end-of-life care conversations. And if there's anything we could label as natural moment, it would be when a crisis has happened, some sort of healthcare crisis, right? And guess what? That's too late. And those words come from a video I'm a very big proponent of that was done by Dr. Atul Gawande. He wrote the book Being Mortal, and there's a PBS special you can watch called Being Mortal. And so he says it in that way. I think it's a very eloquent way to say there's no natural moment to bring up these conversations with people except for a crisis, and that is too late. So do it, start it. I've been involved in this stuff for 2.5 decades. I've worked in hospice, I was an end-of-life caregiver, I did death doula work, I've had countless trainings on this stuff, and I had a really hard time bringing it up with my dad. So it's just not easy for any of us, especially when we're bringing it up with the person we have a relationship with. You know, people who work in hospice and have professional relationships with people, that's one thing. But when it's your own, it's a whole other ballgame. So just know that it's going to be awkward and it's going to be difficult and it may be emotional, and that's just what you're stepping into. This realm is like that. So it's okay. You don't have to want to do it, but just know that you can. You can. And the benefits for you, your family, the person who you want to talk to about it, huge. So that's my motivational start here. And let's see here. So advanced care directives, every state, I'm going to be talking about the US here. That's where I am and that's what I've learned about. But every state has kind of a different requirement, but they all have a basic advanced care directive form, and you want to get that done. That's the very basic start. You want to pull out that form. You can download it from some website online. It's really easy to find it for your state, and you can print it up and you can sit down with your loved one, and that's a good way to start. And you can also say to lighten it so that someone's like, what? Do you think I'm dying? Or, I'm not there yet, and you will be met sometimes with negativity. Other people, we all have our different comfort levels about talking about death and dying. And you might be surprised when you bring it up with someone. But if it is met with some resistance, one way to bring it up is, I know we're not there yet. I know this is not where we're at, but I don't want to wait to talk about these things till when we are and we're in crisis mode. So out of love for you and for myself, I want us to talk about this. And I know it's not easy, something like that. And you can use I watched a YouTube video, and she really got it across to me, like how important it is to talk about this now, sooner than later. Use like having been, shown something, or done some sort of education, or listened to some sort of talk that influenced you. And now it's there, So that's one way, so that a person is less alerted to, God, why now? Why is this such a concern now? And there's all the different levels of it. There's financial concerns. If a person has not done a will, if a person has assets, you don't want those, like a house, you don't want things to go into probate. I won't get into all those details. I don't even understand all those details. I just know that it's so much better when someone has created a will or a trust, if they have assets for their belongings, and designating where those go and who they belong to and who they will belong to when they die. It's just a load of less heartache and headache and work at a time when someone is already having to deal with the emotional trauma of having said goodbye to someone they love. So we want to save pain and heartache and headache later by talking about this now. And so those are some examples. Advanced care directives, which designates a power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney. There's power of attorney for healthcare issues, for how you want to be cared for when you're dying, and there's a power of attorney for financial issues, and who will handle your estate, your assets that I just talked about, your belongings after you die. So those can be two different people, and oftentimes it is best to have those be two different people. So let's talk about the importance of an advanced care directive. One of the main important reasons you want one is because you want someone designated as your healthcare power of attorney. Sometimes some states call it surrogate, some states call it agent. You want that person chosen. And a lot of times that person is not an immediate family member. Not always. Sometimes we have someone who's like, yeah, I can talk about this, we can do this. They can remain level-headed, even though in the heat of the moment they might be freaking out that that's what's happening to their person, that their person may be dying soon. But they can handle a situation like this. That's your person. If you have a close friend, if you have a mentor, if you have a coworker even that you trust, it's just someone that you trust to remain level-headed in emotional situations. If something traumatic has happened to you, if you're in the emergency room, if things have sped up with an illness or your aging process, and you are no longer able to speak for yourself, you want to have designated that person on an advanced care directive form. And the other thing you wanted to have designated is what kind of treatment and what kind of care you want in an emergency type situation. And that could be CPR, hydration, all those situations. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I want to urge you to research your state's requirements. Every state is a little different. And so the doctors in an ER situation, in an emergency situation, are going to be looking for that. And they're going to guide how they care for you using that. And most of the time, I will go into this, most of the time you can just have witnesses when you sign this. People think, oh, it's this whole process of having to get it notarized, and it seems like a hassle. A lot of times you can just have two witnesses. And if you do have to get it notarized, it's really not a hassle. We just think it is. There's notary publics all over the place, in your bank, in different office of aging, in your area, you have an office on aging. Various areas have notary publics. So if your state does require that it's notarized, not a big deal. Do it. And when you do it, you think you're going to be reading these things and you're going to think, I don't know. I don't know all the different medical situations I could possibly be in. No, nobody does. But you're going to have a sense, and you're going to have certain things that you've maybe been concerned about or had some fears around. Those are things to pay attention to and to get narrowed down, what you want, what you don't want. And yeah, I think that's how much detail I'll go into that. So advanced care directive is one. The other is will. And and also the advanced care directive is sometimes referred to in some states as the living will. The will is what's going to happen after you die. And yeah, when you get started talking about this, I could go into levels and levels and levels, but I want to do this as like an intro so that you're not scared away from it, because what happens on these things is you get started and you feel such a burden lifted off your shoulders because you started, and then you're interested in doing more, and then you get more done. And like if you get the advanced care directive done, that's a huge burden lifted, and then you'll start to learn more about it because you're not in this big denial mode about it, and you might want to actually redo it, and then you'll find out it's not that hard to redo it. So this isn't like, sign your life away on a dotted line. This is just get started, have something, and it's a guide. And here's one more thing: when you are deciding for your loved one, and your loved one is telling you what they want, or if it's you who's watching this video and you got to get someone going on this and helping you on this, if that you're closer than they want to let on. These decisions that you're making around healthcare, I lost my train of thought there. I went too far. It'll come back. Yeah. Yeah, okay. It'll come back. Edit that part. The next step is heading in the direction of wills. So wills, that's pretty obvious, I think, to most people. We know that we have personal belongings, possessions, and we have certain things we care about, and we want to go to certain people, or we want done in taken care of in a certain way. And I would say probably the most important of those is a home, a house, property. But there's family things that have been passed on as well that hold sentimental value, and not everyone in the family knows what those are. A caregiver might not know what kind of values a certain thing has. The person dying holds that story. So it's letting people know what's valuable and what's not, whether it's sentimental value or it's actual dollar value. And I think that's pretty obvious. And then the other is the designating. The importance of a will is designating someone as your financial power of attorney so that they can take care of all this stuff. And then there's not all this fighting. Families can get really funny, especially if in families where the person dying has some money and some assets. You'd be surprised. So you talking to your person, if you're the one bringing up the conversation with your person who might be dying sooner than later, you also can present it that like, Mom, I just want to, or Dad, I just want to, or my spouse, I just want to avoid heartache among family members when we're already at that time we're already going to be having a hard time saying goodbye to you. I want to avoid confrontation, fights, confusion. This is just looking out for us. You would be doing us a huge favor if we have this conversation. Rather than being fearful of them perceiving you as greedy because you want to talk about what you want. There's a way to be honest about that. And so that's the other thing. Okay, so we've got advanced care directive, living one. So once you do bring up, this is what I was going to bring up before. You would be surprised. You don't always know what a person wants. You think, and I've seen this so much in classes that I taught, like spouses who've been together for so many years, they'll go to talk about what they want, what's important to them at the end of life for their care, if they are dying gradually, which most of us will. When they express what they want done, the spouse is surprised, like, wait, what? Like one will be like, I want all pull out all stops, I want all treatment, I want CPR, I want, artificial hydration. Yeah, do it all, And then the spouse is like, I don't want any of that. One person might want pain medication, one person might not. So it's really interesting how a lot of us think, we assume that what we want, everybody wants in end of life. Not true. So this is why this is important, is to talk about it. And you will be surprised when you bring it up with people that you've known for a long time, that you care about, how they have a different view on it as you. And some people don't have anything specific that they really care deeply about, but others really have a pretty specific idea of what they want, what they do want, what they don't want. So that if you don't ask, you don't know. That's a big one. I mean, you don't bring this up, then you're just going to be guessing. And what that can mean is, after a person dies, regrets and feeling like not knowing if you did what that person really wanted. And that's not a good feeling to have on top of grief for having lost someone. So that's another reason it's really important to talk to people about this and ask them their questions. Ask them those questions and what they want and their wishes, their desires. Again, drawing on from the Being Mortal documentary, Atul Gawande, he wrote his book and then he went through it himself with his dad. And like I said earlier, it's a whole other ballgame when you go through it with yourself, on your own, with your family member. And that's how I got my crash course into this work, is by caring for my mom when she died of cancer. She was 54, I was 19. I was just starting to decide what I wanted to do with my life. I had gone away to college for a year, left home, and came back to care for her. So, you know, this stuff, I got a really heavy-duty crash course on this stuff, and then I spent the rest of my adult life, next 27 years, learning about all this, because I was amazed at how few people could talk to me as a 19-year-old and give me any kind of valid information on how to handle this stuff. So this is why I want people to be more educated on this. We're not taught any of this. And not only are we not taught, it's really difficult to talk about. And it's really difficult to find somebody who wants to talk about it. So the next stop is these 3 questions I want to share with you that come from this video. He spelled this out really well. Atul Gawande, after going through it with his dad, he did a documentary. I already mentioned that. The first one is, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up, and what are you not willing to give up? Now, the 3 questions I'm going to present here are really open-ended questions, and that's purposeful, because you get the person talking about, you know, they'll go in a direction. By you giving them kind of an opening, they're going to go in a certain direction. You might be surprised where they go. It might be really different than what you would want for yourself. And that's good information. And that helps with regrets down the road, and confusion and arguments among family members. Second one is, what are your priorities? If your time was shorter, you know, if your time was sooner, what are your priorities? And someone could launch into healthcare, how they want to be cared for. They could launch into things they want to get done. You know, it's an open-ended question to keep asking them, and to let them kind of direct you as to what's important to them. What are your priorities if your time was shortened? And then the last one is, what are your concerns, fears, worries when it comes to end-of-life care, death, any of it? What are your fears? What are your concerns? That's also going to clue you in as to how you can make this person feel more at peace when the time is nearer, and how you can direct the kind of care they're getting. You know, if someone's scared of being in a facility, dying not at home, I'll have another video I'm making on hospice. Hospice's main purpose is to allow a person to die at home, and it still requires so much caregiving. Hospice can't be there 24/7, even though some of the hospices advertise 24/7. They can be on call 24/7, but they can't be there with you, caring for you 24/7. They're not set up like that anymore. They might have been at one time, but it was probably a lot of volunteer care that was happening. What are your fears? What are your concerns? If somebody has a fear of being in a facility, it's good for you to know. If someone has a fear of dying at home and having other people have to take care of them in their home, that's good to know too. There are hospices that have facilities that you can take someone to, and they don't require you do it in the home. So some people prefer that, and everyone has different preferences. Having worked in hospice for several years, I've seen how it just runs the gamut. And same thing on pain medication. Yes or no on pain medication, that can really vary from person to person. And in terms of starting this conversation, people are really posturing around this topic, and whether it's you're the person who might be aging and closer than the rest of the family, or you're the person who's concerned about someone, we all have these things where we're trying to like take care of the other person and not disturb or make the situation with more friction, and we're all trying to, ultimately I do think we all care for each other and we want to help, and so, but we all have really different ways of showing that. And so the more you start to talk about it and bring it up, the less posturing you have to do around that, and the less, so therefore the less work it will be when someone is actually dying. All of this is just making life easier for yourself during a really difficult time, challenging transition in your life. And the more you bring it up, you plant a seed. You might be met with a lot of resistance, like I said before. You might be met with like, what? Like, why the fuck are you bringing this up? Like, you might be met with severe anger. You might be met with like just despair. Like, I don't want to talk about this. This is an awful topic. But here's the thing. Then when someone's condition shifts and they are starting to become less like this about it, they are going to remember back to where there was one person who was trying to bring this up in a loving manner, even if they met it with such negativity towards you. This has happened all my life. Wait, there's one person who's okay talking about this stuff. Oh yeah, Laura. They're going to remember that because you planted a seed with them. You brought it up. So even if you get nowhere the first time you bring this stuff up with someone, you'll have planted a seed, guaranteed. And I've seen this with my clients, and sometimes it's taken years to where they finally get their aging parent to do a will, and it took like subsequent, getting more and more comfy talking about this. There's also, I was taught this by a client, that there's a lot of past stuff in past generations that has informed how we really suck at talking about this stuff now. And it was considered very rude to talk about death in many families. Like, that's just wrong. In some cultures, in some ethnicities, in some religions, it's a bad thing. It's bad luck. It's bad. You're not having faith if you're freaking out about someone dying. You're not having as much good faith. There's all these different reasons for why it's difficult to talk about these things. But because it is so difficult, that's why we want to start now. And if someone in your life is close, and let's say you're feeling like it's time for hospice, I'm going to be making a video about hospice and how to know and how to choose the right one, what questions to ask. And I think I'm mostly done on this topic for now. And I want to let you know about a class I'm doing that talks about all of these topics and more. And it is called What Matters in the End. And it's a 7-week course, and I'll be teaching it live online, and I would love to have you join if you're someone who's wanting to, take advantage and seize the day for quality of life now, and seize these precious moments that you have left with someone. It's going to be prep for someone who's preparing and getting ready to care for a loved one, and for if or when they find themselves at the bedside of anyone, a friend, a spouse, themselves prepping for your own death. Just to know a little bit more about the logistics of this stuff can really empower us on an emotional, spiritual level to be a little bit more ready and face it, just face it a little bit better. You know, I heard a gentleman one time say, you just got to face your problems. And I don't know, it just really struck me. All of us, you know, there's a lot of discomfort in life, let's face it. And so we're avoiding discomfort, we're avoiding pain. But when he said that, it just really hit me. Like, we just got to all face our problems. And death is deemed as such a problem in life, in our culture, and yet it is such a natural part of life. It is such a natural part of being human. It's the one thing we all have in common, is that we're going to die. So why not start learning about it now, and you know, just expand your knowledge, expand your wisdom, expand your awareness of yourself that way. So I think I'll end on that, and I just want to wish everyone a lot of love and a lot of bravery, bold courage by bringing up that elephant in the room. And you can do it, and I have faith in you, and I appreciate you even listening to a video like this, because it's not easy. Some people think death, you know, gosh, that's so dark, and okay, yeah, it can be. Elements of it and loss are definitely dark, and yet learning about it and facing it and learning to work with it is actually how we remain anchored to the light and the sound and the love. So, wishing you love. Take good care.